Hi, my name is Dr. Asia Eaton. I'm a psychological scientist and public psychologist, and this is Mindbridge, where science meets human rights. In this podcast, we invite human rights defenders to teach and learn from brain and behavioral scientists about how we can all use science to do human rights work that is more efficient and impactful. Welcome to the Mindbridge Podcast. Today is January 8th, 2026, and today's episode is extra special. We have 3 guests here to teach us about developmental disabilities and human rights. We've got Siobhán, Caitlin, and Kate. I'll start by introducing Siobhán. Siobhán Bogle is a dedicated special education teacher, connection seeker, an inclusion advocate who believes deeply in the power of relationships to transform learning. With a master's degree in special education and a concentration on inclusion education, she has a passion for neurodiversity affirming practice. She works to create classrooms where every student is seen, valued, and supported as their full self. Siobhán is committed to building inclusive school communities, strengthening collaboration among educators and families, and elevating the lived experience of individuals with disabilities. Her work centers compassion, dignity, and authentic connection both inside the classroom and in the broader world. Welcome, Siobhán.
Thank you.
Caitlin Williams is a 21-year-old adult who has Down syndrome. She has a large family, including a twin brother, 2 sisters, another brother, and 4 dogs.
Yes.
That's a full house. She loves having a big family and always has something to do. She loves swimming. She's part of an adaptive cheering squad and also loves going to the gym with friends. She loves loud music, movies, bowling, and the arcade. She is part of Best Buddies in Maine and loves connecting with other people who have IDD. She lives in her own apartment and hopes to someday work at an animal rescue. Welcome, Caitlin. Thanks for being here. And then last, we have Kate Long, a PhD candidate in developmental science at Florida International University, where her work has focused on centering the voices of people with intellectual disabilities and their families. She's been a licensed occupational therapist for nearly 10 years and has clinical experience serving people with disabilities in schools, hospitals, and mental health service centers. Before becoming an occupational therapist, she was a direct support professional, supporting adults with intellectual disabilities, a role which has profoundly shaped her orientation toward disability justice. Welcome, Kate.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I am so excited to get started. My first question is for Siobhán. If you could just tell us a little bit about how you got involved in work on developmental disabilities.
Well, first, thank you so much for having me on here. It feels like an honor, especially being alongside people who have the same mission. It's pretty meaningful to me. Everything that I will share today, I guess, comes alongside from shared connections and experiences with students that I work with, families and colleagues. And I guess I just deeply believe that disability justice specifically starts with listening to each other. So thanks. So I came along working with people with IDD, which is people with intellectual developmental disabilities, in a very organic way, I guess. I went to school at first for nursing with the idea of becoming possibly an art therapist. And I took a job working for a place called Project for Supported Living. And that experience there completely shifted my career vision and life and experience. And I don't know, I just started working as a behavioral health professional, it's called, in homes or community programs when I was going to school. So I switched degrees and went for special education. And then from there, I've worked alongside of being a paraprofessional, or in Maine, we call them ed techs, which is an educational technician. I also was a pre-K teacher for a school called Woodford's, which works with people with developmental disabilities. And then I worked at a high school setting as a functional life skills teacher and as a middle school functional life skills teacher. So I don't know if that really answered your questions, but that's sort of I've been doing it for almost 20 years now, which is crazy to think. I just really love it. And as justice relates to developmental disabilities, it means honoring the people in a holistic format for me, as looking at them as a whole human. I really believe and autonomy with working with people, ways to give them meaningful lives, recognizes that the brain comprehends things differently for each person in the whole entire world, and specifically this population that I work with. And those differences really deserve love and respect, and listening to people, verbal, nonverbal, gestures and communication. And also seeing that my friend Caitlin really right now wants to connect with me and have fun and be silly. And there's so much fun that we can have in this world that we work in. And it's just not about these services, but it's like relationship building, choice, community, connecting with families. So it's about building these environments, make them feel included, and an ability to thrive and succeed within our community, in the school community and beyond.
Thank you, Siobhán.
Does that answer your question,
Yeah,
Asia?
more than answers my question. And as you said, you and Caitlin already knew each other. Caitlin, how do you know Siobhán Bogle, or as you call her, Bogle?
Caitlin, where did we meet? You and I, where did we meet years ago?
Swimming?
Yeah. We met swimming at a beach in Maine. What state do we live in?
Maine.
Yeah. And it was during summer school.
Most.
Was I your teacher then, though?
No.
No, you were just leaving middle school to high school. Yeah. And Caitlin, we had a connection though, didn't we? We became friends.
We did.
Yeah. And where do we see each other often now, you and I?
Best buddies?
Best buddies, that's right.
Mm.
Yeah. And are you part of the school program or the citizens program?
Strive, you know that.
Well, Strive. Yep, you go to Strive. Yeah. But are you part of Best Buddies citizen or school program?
Sentence.
Citizens, that's right. Because you are how old?
21. Also my twin.
Ooh, baby, 21 years old.
Almost 22, exactly.
Almost 22. So that's how we met. We're just in this little community, huh, in Maine. And we sort of all get Maine's cool because you end up sort of knowing everyone, right, Caitlin?
Mm-hmm.
We know a lot of the same people.
That's what I keep hearing. Maine is a small place.
Yep.
Actually, I'll be moving in different houses.
You might be moving into a different house, she just said.
I am.
Yeah, that'll be cool.
I hope we visit, girlfriend.
I hope I visit too, girlfriend.
Oh, that's awesome to have you on. Thanks, Caitlin. And Kate, can you tell us a little bit about what you study in plain language and how you got involved in this work?
Sure. Oh, it's pretty hard to follow that, but I study the experiences of people with intellectual disabilities and their families and just ways to support them with living their best lives. So, in some of my research, I focus on the process of becoming an adult. What does it feel like? What does it look like? In other parts of my research, I focus on getting ready for work, on helping people with disabilities learn to swim, on occupational therapy in general, and on addressing some sounds that people with disabilities find bothersome. Basically, I try to center the voices of people with disabilities and their families, listen to understand what would make their lives better, and I try to study interventions to address what they need. I really got interested in disability work as a direct support professional in a group home for adults with intellectual disabilities. I really enjoyed getting to know all of the adults in my care, but it struck me that oftentimes they were hidden from sight. I would talk to people in my life about the people I was supporting, and they would say, "Oh, we don't see people like that in our worlds. Like, we didn't even know they existed." And that's not okay. Then, as an occupational therapist in the school system, I realized that people with disabilities like Down syndrome often aren't represented in research. And so I decided to become a researcher to help change that.
Amazing. Siobhán, tell us a little bit about what a day in the life looks like for you.
Yeah, sort of actually along like what Kate was just saying. It's a busy, dynamic
Oh,
day, and it's never the same. Every day is so different, which I actually really love and enjoy. I try to keep structure and routine for the students, but I'm doing the moving with the ebbs and flows of students' needs and behaviors and communication needs. I guess there's a title in my class. I just say I'm a special ed teacher, but there is like a sort of an overall title in my room. It's called a functional life skills teacher. So that means I mainly work with students from severe to moderate intellectual disabilities and or autism. And so I collaborate with I have like the best team. I love my job here. I have paraprofessionals that I supervise, but they're also just like legit my team. They're amazing. They do incredible work. I have occupational therapists. I love working with my occupational and therapists and speech and language pathologists and physical therapists. So it's sort of like almost like an embedded treatment program in our room, but also we are a part of a public school system. So we really focus on access to inclusion in mainstream classes too. So we work on, we have a individual education program plans that we do for students that we create in here. And then we do community-based programming, we do swimming, we do Special Olympics, unified classes. Caitlin does unified cheer. I've seen her and it is so fun and cool. We do self-care, behavior supports, and then we're in the classes. So like we go and support kids in science class and we adapt the curriculum, for example, what works for them. And we also have some unified classes as well to support inclusion, connection beyond just academics in our school. So it's pretty wonderful and I love it. And just trying to create a positive classroom environment and is my number one priority, alongside creating a safe space for students that I work with so that they can feel safe to be who they are, to get their needs met, to get as much functional communication. For an example, like if a student says, I need a break with either augmentative communication or a gesture or picture exchange communication, we offer that to them so that autonomy and safety in the school system. So I think that's it. I'm also a Best Buddies advisor and it's really fun. We do a lot at school. It's not the same. And, we go to adaptive music, adaptive PE, adaptive art. We have a greenhouse that I'm sitting in right now, right after school. So we try to keep kids learning transitional and pre-voc skills at a young age here at the middle school, because I was in the high school before, so that it can help them as they transition into adulthood to have a really solid backbone and foundation to go into the community so that they can continue to be part of their community and serve and work in meaningful life. And that's a really important aspect of my job. So, I mean, it's fast-paced, fun, creative, and challenging at times too.
I'm hearing a lot already about the importance of access to mainstream education, inclusion of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities in the media, the access to the same kind of privileges and opportunities that everybody has. And I want to follow up on that, but at first I'm interested to hear what a typical day is like for Caitlin. Caitlin, what does a day look like for you? What do you do in a day?
I wake up 7:30, do my dishes, cook dinner, and I do a lot of things.
Caitlin, are you okay if I help clarify what you just said? You did such a nice job saying that. Are you okay with me helping? Cool.
Go ahead.
So you said that you do a lot of chores. You wake up at 7:30. You do the dishes, you cook, and you do a lot of things. Caitlin, where do you go 3 days a week?
Throughout that I do go to Hanford, pick up my meals, and then
She goes to Strive and she does different activities there. And you like to go to Hannaford to go shopping. Hannaford is our grocery store here.
Okay.
To go shopping and you get your mail. And Caitlin, what do you like to do for downtime when you get home?
I use my iPad, my phone.
And what else do you walk a lot?
My dog.
Sounds like my day. iPad, phone, chores, making dinner. And Kate, what about you? What does a day look like for you as a researcher in developmental psychology with a focus on disabilities?
I would say I don't get to do this nearly as often as I would like, but my favorite thing to do is interview people, adults with Down syndrome and their families. And so asking them questions about their day or what they like to do, I love that. But most of the time, I just get to work with some really incredible, brilliant people every day. I'm involved on projects with scholars in education, social psychology, neuroscience, speech, language pathology, audiology, occupational therapy counseling, all that stuff.
Wow.
And so many fascinating fields of research. I spend a lot of time sharing my work with other people, either by writing papers to publish in journals or creating poster presentations or lectures so that I can show visuals of what I'm doing. My favorite part of my research is getting to share the perspectives of people with disabilities with people who
Be
might not get
quiet.
to hear those perspectives. And I always learn something new every single day.
So I want to return to the theme of inclusion that I've heard from all of you. What does inclusion mean to you as intellectual and developmental disabilities? Why is it important? How do you foster it? What are your thoughts on that topic?
I can go first, I guess. Inclusion for me is breaking down perceived thoughts or biases that people have about people with intellectual disabilities and finding that we have so much more shared connections and likeness between each other. So, I work from fourth through eighth grade. So I have a big range of different kids that I work with, and inviting them into my classroom so that they can feel that my classroom is a safe space. They can ask me questions and we work together. And then empowering them to become friends. I mean, friendship is like, I think the number one thing. I deeply value it so much that I'm part of the Citizens program. I have a best buddy he's 30 years old. His name's Thomas. Shout out to Thomas. I know he'll listen to this. He has Down syndrome as well. Caitlin, you know Thomas.
Yep.
Yep. He has become like an uncle to my children. Having those connections, showing that we might all look and talk differently and do things that make us feel good differently, but we are all human, and just showing that there's beauty in that and connection is just the best part. I mean, having friends is the world is so much better having friends. And that's how I think the inclusion is. And just challenging to like accept people into those different spaces is really important. Caitlin, do you feel good when you have friends?
Yes.
Yeah. How we speak about inclusion? Can you tell me what a friend is to you?
I got Andrew, Chloe.
When you have a friend, what do they do that makes you feel good? What do you like to do together?
We go out for dinner. I
Mhm.
stayed home to my iPad at night.
Yeah, so it's like not much different than what I do with my best friend. I like to go out to dinner with them. We like to listen to music, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I love going to concerts and dancing, and watching movies.
Concerts.
We all have something that's in common, and we need to capitalize on that. Those are like what I think. Caitlin, does that sound good to you?
Yep. Yep. And I do love concerts.
You don't love concerts, but
Nope.
but you like loud music though, right?
Yep. On my iPad.
On your iPad. And you like to dance a lot. I've seen you boogie at the Best Buddies prom. Yeah. I think that's it from me and Caitlin.
Yep.
And Kate, what does inclusion mean to you as a researcher? What does research say about how we can promote inclusion for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities?
That is a really big question. I'm going to try my best to tackle it. I would say one of the priorities for research in Down syndrome or research in disability is to include more people with Down syndrome in research. There actually are fewer people with Down syndrome who are involved in studies than there are people with other disabilities. And so I think that's an important part of inclusion. Inclusion means having access to the opportunities that most adults take for granted, like being able to have work that pays a living wage, meaningful work, not just um, a job that someone can do but doesn't like. Not everybody likes stocking shelves at a grocery store. Some people are able to do more involved things. Everybody should have access to safe housing with good caregiving support. Um, Everyone should be able to marry who they want to marry and not have any financial penalties because of that. People should be able to have active leisure. So not just sitting in front of a television all day, but having friends, having social time, being able to have safe transportation to do what they want to do in their life. That's kind of what inclusion means to me.
I totally feel that deeply. And I think like our community in this area, like obviously we can really expand and work on that more, but I do think that there's a big push for people to try to get that access for students and I'm saying students, but individuals, right? Because I work with the kids' school.
I talk the same way. I have to tell myself to stop.
um, but working for individuals with intellectual disabilities, it's just important to get that access for them, and things that make us feel really good make everyone feel really good. Like we want to feel valued. And that's why for me and my team, I know that we really work on those voc skills and community access and leisure skills. We do even have IEP goals around leisure skills. So, because sometimes some individuals might need to learn how to do something to common, like a hobby, right? Like, I still have to learn how to do hobbies too. So we practice that here so that later on in life in that vision, because I've worked in the high school and in like adult programming too, to have that meaningful work is really important, and access to it. And I think we have a long way to go with that in our state of Maine, but also the country. But however, I think there is forward movement in it, and it's beautiful to see. And I think other organizations are seeing the need for it and how much it can help for everyone.
In your efforts to create inclusive environments for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, what are some of the challenges that you face, Siobhán?
This is hard. I mean, there's a lot of challenges. We sort of work in systems that weren't really designed for like neurodivergent students or people with IDD. And I'm constantly finding ways to like advocate to like rework these systems a little bit. Think about it like I'm just talking about a school-based system, but I know this is also like perceived in like the work-based setting too, right? Sometimes I put on my mind like, what if I were a person with an intellectual disability? How would I navigate my job too? But like there's rigid schedules, there's heavy sensory environments. For example, like right now, I don't know if you can hear, there's a fan in here that could be bothering me. It sort of bothers me, but it could be bothering me to another level. Fluorescent lighting, like loud noises. No, there's different barriers that don't align with how the students' bodies and brains work best. So that's sort of like my number one thing. I'm constantly like tweaking environment to create like that safety in there. So that's sort of like one of my first challenges. I guess the other one is like, because I have to focus on academics, community-based program, transitional skills, sensory, all that stuff. Behavior support. There's a lot of behavior support that I do. Self-care, social emotional needs of these individuals I work with, while also supervising staff. And I just sometimes like, and creating documentation, right? And data. I sometimes like feel a little bit overwhelmed as like a one person, but then I have to step back and realize it is a team. And I always am like, there has to be different ways or systems in place that I don't know to help alleviate some of my stress as advocate or care provider for these individuals. I'm going to just say, sometimes I feel like there's low expectations for these students that I work with outside of my classroom, with other professionals in the community or people in the community that might just have like low expectations for these individuals where I work with. And these students are so incredibly underestimated, and it is really hard to see that. And I'm constantly pushing back against that, that deficit-based thinking that people have, and remind them that this difference does not mean that these people are less that I work with, and that they are so incredibly intuitive. They're really amazing on how they can pick up different vibes or like social emotional cues from others. So I mean, with that, like there's like emotional labor work on me and sustaining, like supporting these students and families. I always want to do my best, and I often feel like I'm using my energy and creativity a lot, and I'm always like underestimating myself, and I just want to make sure I'm doing a good job. But I want to make sure that these students also have like realistic views in their life and like challenges that we can like pre-teach them, so that when they get older that they can succeed and meet up to those expectations that we set. So I just want to make sure those systems around us are flexible enough to honor their amazing whole being.
You've said so much. You've talked about stigma, you've talked about emotional labor, structural and systemic impediments in systems that were built for neurotypical people. Kate, what does research say about how to address any of these challenges or other challenges?
I got really excited when you talked about how schools are not built for people with intellectual disabilities, because I was going to say something very similar. It's funny because special education was created as a response to activism by the disability community. And so there has been a lot of progress that's been made, but the way that we've implemented things, it's based on a medical model of disability. It's based on pointing out things that are wrong with people instead of pointing out things that are right. And so I really feel that deeply. One of the things that I've learned about as somebody in academia is the social model of disability, and you might be familiar with that. Looking at the source of disability, not in the problems that a person experiences, but in the barriers that society causes. And so disability isn't a problem that we need to fix, but society is the problem. And so that's kind of a model that I look to when I'm thinking about working in schools.
Caitlin, I'd love to know what are some changes you'd like to see in things that you find challenging? What are some things maybe at school or at home, some barriers that you want to see changed?
Caitlin, what are some things that you want in your life that you might not have right now?
iPad. I know that.
I got you. I hear you on that. You want your iPad. Caitlin, do you want to have a job?
Yeah, I do.
And what do you want to do?
Animal clinic.
Yeah, you want to work with animals. You are so kind with animals and you have a lot of animals. You want to have a farm one day, right? And what do you want on that farm?
Puppies.
You just want puppies now? No more
Yeah.
sheep?
No.
No more sheep. Oh man. Well, I mean, that's an example. Like our mind, like we change with what we want and need. So, Caitlin, you want to have a job, right?
Yep.
Yep. What else do you want in life?
My twin brother. Duh.
Yeah, you love hanging out with your twin brother.
Yep.
Where is he right now?
What are you doing now? The house or out?
Yeah. So maybe, Caitlin, sometimes do you feel like access to transportation would be helpful?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And we live in a really rural area. So that is a challenge where we live. Access to transportation is something that we might take for granted that Caitlin doesn't have, but maybe we could be more creative in accessing that in rural communities. What else do you want, Caitlin? Do you have a boyfriend right now?
No.
No. But would you like to have a boyfriend one day?
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you had boyfriends before?
Not once.
Just once, yeah. And so having that like meaningful relationships and romantic relationships is important to you.
Yep.
Yeah. Caitlin can do all this. You can do it, right, Caitlin?
Yep.
That's right, my dear. Caitlin knows this, right?
Yes.
Is there anything else you want, Caitlin, or you might want to change? Like, what's something that people do that you do not like?
I'm gonna start skiing.
Skiing?
Sugarloaf.
Sugarloaf? You're going to start skiing at Sugarloaf with
Yes,
Maine
here.
Adaptive?
Yep, that one.
Very cool, Caitlin. You're pretty happy, aren't you?
I am.
Yeah.
Kate, I know you've done research on these barriers. Transportation in particular, I know is featured as an issue in your dissertation research. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, there's a lot. So there aren't too many options for transportation, especially if people live in a rural area. But even if you do live in a city, there's something called paratransit where people with disabilities can get picked up from their home and be taken wherever they want to go, like work. But the problem with paratransit a lot of the time is that it's unreliable. It
Mhm.
doesn't pick people up at the right place, or sometimes it doesn't drop people off at the right place.
Mhm.
I had a parent talk to me about her son was trying to get to work and he was using paratransit, and he was dropped off next to the highway instead of at work, and there was no way that he could physically get to work from there.
And
And
that's also a
so
safety concern too, if he doesn't have not saying that he doesn't, but there could be people who don't have safety awareness in a community setting, and that's a pretty unsafe situation to be driving.
Right, right. And thankfully, he was able to use his phone and call his mom, and she was able to come and pick him up. But when she called the transportation authority to complain about it, they didn't even apologize.
Mm.
So that's a huge barrier for people. And a lot of the times, transportation it does a lot to accommodate physical disabilities, but it doesn't necessarily accommodate cognitive disabilities or people who have trouble with finding their way around the community. And so, really, there's a lot that even paratransit or the city bus could be better equipped to serve people with disabilities.
Kate, one thing that as you're speaking, I'm thinking about, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but it's like that one thing we work on is like self-advocacy. And like if you're put in a situation that might not feel safe or like you don't really know where you're going, that's another aspect that can be be determined when you're like driving around with someone and you can't
Mm-hmm.
advocate, like, this doesn't seem right. I'm going, but you're
Mm-hmm.
also sort of trusting this person to drive you around. We have similar situations here as well.
We've talked about the need for inclusive transportation, work environments, opportunities for socialization and relationship development. Siobhán, what are some things that you really want from the field of brain and behavioral science to do your work? What are some questions you want answered?
I'm like in a pretty cool position that I actually work a lot with psychologists. And we work with BCBAs as well too. So like behavioral science is something that I'm constantly thinking about. I think like practicality is really important, flexibility, and really ways to implement this stuff grounded in real like classrooms or communities that people, not just myself, but like other paraprofessionals or new people can actually implement themselves at like a slow, steady pace. Because sometimes it's like do this X, Y, and Z, and you have to be like really rigid, and that doesn't. It takes away a little bit of the human connection from
Mm-hmm.
educators and the individual you're working with. And I think like really focusing, and Kate, I'm not saying this about you, but like, that you
No,
probably
no, it's
know.
fine.
Okay. I know that you probably know like some of the assessments that we use and stuff too. I just really think when I do triennial evaluations and stuff, so every 3 years we do reevaluations and we go through a bunch of different assessments and do a lot of testing. And as the kids are towards their end of their middle school or high school careers, right? And as an educator, it's hard to read these reports out. We're using language that is really, I'd like it to move away from like deficit-based models and more towards understanding of strength and context and support needs that these individuals need. For example, I might be reporting out on an 18-year-old and I have to say is cognitively at 18 months. And that is really hard to say out loud because
Mm-hmm.
you say that and I understand that there needs to be norms-based referencing. But however, when you're saying that as this individual and you've been with a student for 6 years and you're like, I know so much strengths about this kid. So I'm just curious about ways that we can look into the world of psychology to empower that and maybe change the language a little that makes it a little more affirming. I mean, I don't know how to do it, but that's just like one thing I think about. And I'm always interested about like executive functioning.
Mm-hmm.
The concept of time is always like I struggle teaching that for my own children. I'm a mom of four,
Mm-hmm.
but specifically in my classroom, that concept of time often is very tricky for students that I work and adults that I've worked with. And I'm trying to think how like we can support skills without trying to fix people. Does that make sense? Like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I would love a world to just like meet us where we're at and like set great goals and things personal to each other, but we don't need to fix anyone. Like we all have our peaks and in different parts of our life. And I think research to understand behavior as communication and supports proactive, like compassionate approaches rather than a reactive one. Does that make sense, Kate?
Absolutely, that makes sense. And I agree with you. I have some of the same concerns about standardized testing for people with disabilities and having to justify services based on how many things we find wrong with somebody. I find that hurtful and unhelpful. And I wish there were ways that we could do assessments in ways that affirm people's strengths more.
Yeah. I mean, one parent said this to me, which will always forever stick with me. And it was maybe about 5 or 6 years ago. And the parent stated, like, we already know that our child has a diagnosis and
Hmm.
that's not going to change for the rest of their life. And so they kept saying, why are we still revisiting these assessments? And I understand that we want to see
Hmm.
growth and progress, but are there different ways that we can talk about this so that other organizations, so outside agencies, can
Hmm.
also still approach the best needs for that student? I feel like there's a way that we can switch it, and I don't know specifically what, but when we're reporting out on this, it never feels right, I guess is the best way to say it.
Yeah. I felt the same way when I was writing my annual evals and about students. And I'm not sure that I have an answer for that, but it's definitely something that I would love to learn more about.
Just out of curiosity, like, do you know any different transitional assessments that you would suggest? Like, we do like outside of like Brigance assessments or anything like that.
I don't know any off the top of my head, but I
Yeah,
can look them up later.
cool.
But I'm not even sure that they exist. I
I
think
know.
the research is so far behind what really needs to happen. Like, for example, I think really where research needs to be going is that we need to start employing research assistants with Down syndrome if we're going to
Mm,
study Down syndrome. But there are so few studies that actually do that. And so it's really tough because the world of research works so slowly, and we know that X, Y, and Z needs to happen, but we struggle to actually make it happen.
I love that. I love that mindset of having people with intellectual disabilities part of it. And I think that's really important that their voices are really important and they are meant to be at this table when we speak about them or with, and I'd rather be speak with them and have these conversations together with connection. And that should be within their own assessments and in their own plans and treatment plans.
On that note, Caitlin, maybe you could share with us some of the things that you're good at, some of your strengths. She's hiding.
Caitlin, you're silly. Caitlin, what are you really good at?
Honey people.
Hiding from people. Caitlin, are you good at making people feel happy?
Yes.
What else are you good at? Is mom there?
I tried to be quiet.
Walked in after I got yelled at many times. She actually made a list of things she was good at.
Yeah. Can you read them, Caitlin?
What's the first one?
Bowling,
Mm.
cooking, art and crafts.
Are you good at karaoke?
No. Yes. Candyman.
Candyland, very good at Candyland.
Mm.
Can you tell them that your signature recipe that you like to make all the time? You cleaned your cookbook up, but what's your favorite thing to make that you make from scratch with ingredients?
Cookie dough,
What kind of cookie dough?
vegan.
Vegan edible cookie dough.
Mm.
Ooh.
Oh, we
That's
need
your
the
favorite thing?
recipe. Well, with that, I want to thank all of our guests. This has been an
Yeah.
inspiring and meaningful podcast for me. I am excited to get this cookie dough recipe, and I'll let you all have a final word if you have anything else you'd like to share.
This.
The Glickman Lauder Center of Excellence,
Oh, cool.
There.
which is where she goes for
Yep.
some behavior therapy with the BCBA.
Oh, I thought I'll work there.
And she's saying that she would like to work there,
This tower.
which would actually be kind of cool because there'd probably be some good opportunities for you there.
This tower.
Yeah.
I guess when we listen to voices with people with intellectual disabilities, I guess we got to just trust our relationships and design systems with care, create spaces where people don't just survive, they truly belong, and meaningful, connected relationships within communities. That's what I feel.
It's really important to advocate for change in all areas of life because every issue is a disability issue. And I'm borrowing this idea from disability scholars, but they say that, like, for example, climate justice. Yes, it's a climate issue, but also it's a disability issue because, if there's like a hurricane and a disabled person needs to escape the hurricane, there are going to be barriers to that because of systemic prejudice in society. And so that's just one example of every issue is a disability issue, and we're as far as we are because of disabled activists and scholars. One of my favorites is the late Alice Wong. She wrote a book called Disability Visibility, and she shares stories from different disabled activists and writers about their experiences. So I highly recommend that to anybody who's interested in this topic.
Did you get a chance to tell them what project you just helped with? What project did you just help with? Can you share about it since you are the one that did the project? Siobhán Bogle, who you did it with.
Yeah.
Annabelle, and what was it for?
Her final.
Her final exam for her graduate school program at NYU because she's getting her MFA in poetry and she thinks that more disabled writers should have voices. So she and Caitlin collaborated, and Caitlin shared probably 10 pieces of her authentic writing of her own. So she's 24 and she's getting her MFA in poetry and wanted Caitlin to be part of her final.
Raising the voices of people with intellectual disabilities. That's
I think-
amazing.
Pretty cool.
Caitlin, I can't wait to see that. See, you are amazing.
That's beautiful. I'm not sure I have 10 poems to share with the world.
Nope.
Pretty cool.
Well, I am so grateful for everybody's participation today. Thank you, Caitlin, Kate, Siobhán. Thanks, Mom.
Thank you. It's not about me, but to see how much she has to share and then just how difficult it is for her to get it out is fascinating because I'm not sure that most people have the patience or experience to hold space for that. And if we don't, then we just never get to the other side of it. So it's been interesting for me to see that even more about Caitlin. I'd say as she turned 21,
I didn't turn on.
it takes just a long time to get to her authentic feelings, even though she has really good communication skills.
But she still communicated to us with her phone about something that's important and connected. And that's amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Sometimes it just takes a little help, a little technological help, a little friendship help, a help from a caring teacher. We all need it.
Thank you for listening. That was Mindbridge, where science meets human rights. To learn more about how we use brain and behavioral science to empower human rights defenders, find us at mindbridgecenter.org and follow us on social media.